Today we're going to take a look at qualifiers and how they work. Alright, so qualifiers are just simply a way in which to make a mask, make a selection. Typically we would just pick a power window to make that correction. If we wanted to, we could create our own mask by going around a subject, like this, and then coming around. Let's go back to where we were. This, and then we would get it to look correct, and then we would have that selection. That's a way in which you could pick a selection of where you wanted a correction to happen. So it's stating in this node, if we turn on our tool to see our selection, this is stating where our selection is. And you could track a power window, and you could have that go across a couple of other nodes if you wanted to. But the other way of picking a selection, and this is more based around the values of the image of its current state. What I mean by that is the node in which you're currently making that selection on. So right now it's this node, the node that we have visible. We can come over to our qualifier and we can qualify, which is just making a selection on a value of either, it could be the hue, which is like the color value, it could be a saturation level, or it could be a luminance, the brightness, or you could do a combination of all of them. So if we have them all selected, so they're all on right now, this little switch right here is if it's on or off, and then we have our selection here, we could pick something. So like, let's pick her dress. And right now, if we click this so we can see the mask, now we can see we have her dress and we have a couple of other little guys over here. So currently when I made that selection, it said, okay, the color values where I was sliding across is all of these color values here. And the saturation level is here, which is pretty low. And then the luminance value was how bright the image is here. If I wanted to, I could say, okay, I want to make the selection, but not with the hue, with the color. So it's the saturation values and the luminance, or you could say, okay, I just want the luminance of a particular area. So in this whole situation of this shot, you could pick any of those. So let's go back to picking her dress. Now, when I pick her dress, if I switch this over to white and black, now I can see where the hard edges are, and that's where you would get this clean white and clean black. If I change this selection up, now if I pick her skin, you can see that there's an actual variance of colors in here, and then flip it over. Now we see a bunch of like blotchiness, and a lot of that has to do with the compression, because this was shot on like a prosumer camera, so you get a bunch of compression in here. And because this is all white, I can come into my clean white and I can clean that up, and it'll clean it up for the most part, but I would want to add an additional selection by clicking some of this over here. Now I have a pretty good selection. So if we look at this now, I have her skin selected, some of her hair is the same color values, and we have a little bob a little bit around here. The cool thing is, so currently if we were to make a correction, it would correct it, but you can, on top of that, you can add a power window. So you could say, I only want to select this one arm, so it's using the qualifier and it's using the power window, and then you would be able to track that power window as well. Okay, so one of the other things that you'll notice with consumer cameras is, let's say we pick part of her skin, you get a lot of compression. So that's one thing that you're going to be constantly fighting when you're working with using a qualifier, is the compression. They do have a lot of tools in here that you could smooth some of that out. So you could use like I was saying before, the clean white, and you could pick a couple of other values. And when you are clicked on this little guy here, what is going to happen is it's just going to change the amount in which is selected. So if I click here, it's going to add more of those values in. if I click over here, these are only going to do slight adjustments, and it's normally just in the feathering. So these like featherings here, aka the softness. So if I click on add and I click on some of this other stuff, all it's going to do is just add the feathering in there. And then additionally, we could add some blur radius, because what ends up happening is if I do a large correction, so if I do a large correction, it just has those values, and because some of the values aren't selected, if I play this through, you'll get bits and bops that'll go in and out. You see that? You'll get bits and bops that go in and out. And sometimes corrections, it looks, oh man, that looks terrible. But some corrections, it looks, you can kind of get away with it, and some you can't at all. In this shot here, let's say we want to change the sky. So click on the sky up here. Now we have bits of the sky, and as you can see right here with how it's like these squares, that's just compression. It's just one of those things that you have to get used to. There are ways of hiding when you do make adjustments. Not making the adjustments really intense can sometimes not have it to be that noticeable, but a lot of the times what will end up happening is if you do an adjustment like this and you have a lot of compression and it's not clean black and white, and you have a lot of these blocks, you'll end up, when you're done with your color grade, you'll end up having a bunch of dancing blocks around. So there are other tools outside of the HSL qualifier that you can use, but the HSL qualifier is very powerful if you can get around some of the problems that you have with the consumer and prosumer cameras. So what I would do, instead of picking the sky to change the color, instead of that, I would come over into my curves, and then I would get like the hue versus saturation, and then I could get both of my blues, and I could, increase the values here, and that would, add more saturation. Would turn that off and on, it would add more of that blue saturation. So there are other ways of picking particular colors and doing different modifications to it. So you have the Hue Vs Hue, and then you could come over and pick these two, and you could get, so let's add a little bit of green. By moving it up, it's just going to add a little green in here. And then Hue Vs Luminance, I could bring it down and have it really pop against those, against the clouds, because the clouds will stay the same luminance, and then the other ones will come down a little bit. Back to HSL qualifiers, if I come back to my other shot, I moved a lot of this stuff around on me. If I come back to this shot, let's say we have a bit of a color grade going here, so let's just add in a LUT quick. So we have this look going here. If I want it to get one particular color back from previously, so like let's say I don't like that the plants are turning a little on the yellow side, what I could do is I could add in a layer mask, and then for this layer here, I could pick all of the green, and then let's flip it over so we can see that. If I didn't care about saturation, you could turn these on or off, but let's just get all of the green here, and then maybe I could actually get this green over here too. And then you kind of get, so let's say all of this green here. Now what's happening is it's pulling the green from the source, but this LUT is changing the color of everything else. So if we look at her skin and I turn this LUT on and off, you can see that LUT is just affecting everything that's outside of this mask here. So all of this stuff that's white, or if I flip it over, that's colored here, is just my original colors, and then all of the other stuff is this other node here. So that's one of the different ways. And then add some, let's say, some saturation. So now I have the green here, where before it was a bit yellow. Now I have the green here, but then I'm taking the advantages of that LUT and getting the colors that I got out of that LUT. but I'm keeping the green that I liked instead of having these plants yellow like they were previously. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can, you know, modify things. If I wanted to, I could come in and change a particular color. You could take colors from another area. The cool thing is that they are just it's a selection of values instead of a selection of space. The power windows is a selection of space, where the qualifier is a selection of values. So if it's a green value that you want, or if it's a saturation level that you want, or if it's a luminance value that you want. So like, let's say in this shot here, everything looks fine, but let's say the, let's just move a little further down the line. Let's say that I want it to have all of the brighter values, so the values that are being hit by the sun, they are all different colors. So here we have, you know, a goldish yellow, and then here we have a white, and here we have a green. It would be very difficult to pick all of those and, you know, coming into here and picking it. You could, in a sense, come over to your log wheels, change your high range to do this, but one of the things that I like to do is I could pick, okay, I want all of my highlights, and then you could, you know, have it roll off a little bit. So all of the things that are bright, I could come in and have it a little tint of yellow, like that. So now I added all of the bright values. They're gonna have that tint of yellow there that I added in, and then all of the values that are gray here won't have any adjustment added to them, and it's just the higher value. So with that off, and then with it on, there's a ton of different things that, like I said, that you could do with this. And then down here we just have, if things aren't looking very clean, you could blur it out. You can change the amount in and out up with the blur that you would have affected. It's a lot easier if you just come over to here and see that. So I can add a blur and make it blurry instead of having the sharpness like down here. If you look, I blur it, and then the in and out of those as well. There is this other area here that I was trying to figure out, because this is new, at least to my knowledge, this is new. I was trying to figure it out, but when I brought up the manual and I was looking at it, it's very vague and there isn't a lot of information on it. So I'm guessing it's something newer, and I don't know why it's just like in the manual, it's just stating that it exists there, but it's not really explaining what it's doing. I mean, playing around with it a little bit, it made a little bit of sense. Like if I turn this radius up, like you can see that it's making everything into circles. And then if I, you know, switch it to squares, it makes everything like squares, and diamonds as well. But I would like to see it in use by someone else to get a better understanding, because at this point I can't think of any reasons why you would use this. I don't know the benefits of it or just a use case for it. I'm guessing, you know, they put it in for a specific reason, but I just personally don't know what those use cases would be. I get the glow maybe. I'm not too sure about the open and close. But yeah, like I said, if there was, once I know about it, I'll make a video and tell you guys about it. So one of the other things that's down here as well is being able to switch your selection. So there's my current selection. You can click this and it'll just switch it, the reverse of that. Sometimes it's useful. And then continuing on the qualifier tab, you just have the HSL qualifier for hue, saturation, and luminance. These are all pretty much the same. It's just done a little bit differently. You can pick particular red, green, and blue values. This is just luminance, which is the same over here if you just turn these two off. Coming over to the 3D, this enables you to drag a line, and then it'll kind of pick all of the color values that are in that line, and you can pick additional lines and it'll give like an average color. And then, so you could pick a particular color and say, okay, I don't want this, or you want to add to that, or, you know, whatever it may be. But yeah, that's kind of, you know, HSL qualifiers. You can pick particular colors and make selections with those values. So like, let's say we pick her dress. So we say, okay, all of these values in her dress. So now we have that dress, and then we could flip it and say, okay, well, we only want to have colors in her dress. So there's tons of different things that you can do to with the qualifier, and you can always add on top of it. So if there, like I was saying before, if there's something specific that you want to have affected, so let's say it was just these shrubs that you wanted to have that green color, you could come over and then you could say, okay, well, they're already selected in the qualifier. Now I can take just these over here are going to have that green. The rest of the trees, they're going to be the color that they were before. So now the qualifier is limited to this little area, so it will only get the green values in that and then make that selection. Or you could have it affect the whole thing. So that's pretty much qualifiers, working with power windows and layer nodes. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of this one. If you have any suggestions on something you want to know more about, let me know down there as well. Again, my name's JR, and thanks for watching.